Okay, so you want to hear a story? So in the summer of 2003, I moved to Mammoth, and I was falling in love with the place. I wanted to go hiking everywhere I could, and finally got up the courage to do a solo backpacking trip in late summer when Mars was supposed to be closest to the Earth that it had been in like 3,000 years or something, and I wanted to go film it because I was kind of an amateur photographer at the time. On this trip, I had so many life lessons, starting with just the lesson to surrender. Things line up a certain way so that other things can happen, and this trip was full of those. I had so many setbacks, starting with the fact that I didn't realize that the trail had been completely blown out by rainstorms earlier that summer. I had nothing but a photocopied map and just a real small backpack. But I knew that there was a meadow right up here, and so I picked my way through the fallen boulders and was just really delayed. And at that point, kind of frustrated because I was really trying to get to Cloverleaf Lake, which was in quite a bit farther. And then I got up to the meadow finally, and I knew that the lake was over by this mountain over here, but I didn't really know exactly which direction the trail went. So I started heading down the left side of the meadow and ran into another hiker who let me know where Mars would be rising, because I didn't even know that. And also put me back on the correct trail. By the time I had gotten turned around and back on the right trail, I got to the first lake and it was too late. I was just gonna have to camp there. So I set myself up at the top of the lake, facing in the direction that I knew Mars would be coming up, and waited and waited. Mars never rose, and finally I went to bed. I had a magical moment when I was sleeping. Actually, I had a dream that someone said my name, and I woke up and I listened because I thought, you know, maybe that's like instinct kicking in. You need to wake up for a reason right now. And there's no bears, nothing going on. So I unzipped my tent just the tiniest bit, peeked through, and Mars was boop, right in front of my eyes. The biggest thing in the sky, besides the moon, super bright. I realized then that had I not been delayed through all the rock fall and going the wrong direction, I would not have gotten to be right there at that time that night. I was just having all sorts of magic moments and revelations the whole trip. So I'm gonna sit and have some lunch in the shade so that I don't burn. Of course, silly me forgot to bring a hat and or sunscreen. I'm gonna enjoy my lunch. I got myself a veggie wrap. And check this out, I am such a sucker for marketing. Yeah. Peppermint lemonade? I don't know, it sounds kind of weird, but I'm gonna try it because it has a boppy on the front. I also brought my journal from 2003 when I was just a baby, and it all begins on this page. I am sitting here on a log at Cloverleaf Lake. I have my camera, tent, and food supplies for 2 nights. I am alone. It's very beautiful out here. It feels amazing to know that only a dedicated handful of people have been to these same spots. I feel like a part of a club of people that I may never meet unless our paths cross on some mountain trail. I wonder if I will find a nice boy out here somewhere. So I was in no rush to get out when I knew that I needed to be out by sundown the next day. And I stalled. I had this thing that started on this trip of just jumping into lakes whenever I could. It started with that one, and I just stripped down and jumped in, and then got to sun myself on a rock, and in just complete bliss, eating my instant rice and carrots, knowing that I had no food left and still 5 miles to hike out, and it was like 3 o'clock in the afternoon. But I knew I could do it. And so I stopped one more time, right there, and then headed on my way. And as I'm bounding down the trail, like kind of hippity hopping, here comes this guy up the trail. He had this amazing long hair pulled back in a braid. He looked like he was on a mission. He was going somewhere. He was completely fascinating to me. So being that I was in no rush and new to town, I decided that I wanted to stop and make a friend. He had a didgeridoo on his pack that he had made out of PVC pipe, like 3 different sections. So it was like this telescoping didgeridoo with a little cap on the end, and he had put his fishing pole in there. You know, it was just really brief, but memorable. You know, there was just cool stuff about him and his journey that he was going on and how it was so different from mine. But just that we shared that experience. You know, it's pretty incredible that I got the opportunity to meet him at all, because I was 15 minutes from being off of the trail. And had I not stopped that one last time to just sit and overlook the lake and recollect the awesomeness of the trip I had just been on, I might never have met him. So now whenever I have frustrating moments in my life where I just can't understand why something is happening or why I'm having setbacks, I try to think back to this trip and remember how all these things lined up to create the perfect scenario, and I just try to trust in that. So we got to hanging out, of course, after that, and it's been so awesome ever since. And the synchronicities in our lives continue, but that is for another love story. We're gonna make it, babe, from here until forever. And we're gonna have a lot of fun doing it. Thank you for watching and being with me on this beautiful day in one of my favorite locations in the world. 'Cause there you were, walking my way, and I'm so glad our paths